We get very upset when we hear about a politician or somebody who claimed to be a Green Beret and won a Medal of Honor and the Silver Star, and it finds out he was lying. Stolen valor. Rightfully upset by stolen valor. Equally upset am I that men are sent to kill and make people die because the leaders of that country, whether they be capitalist or communist, they are a corporation that are controlled by people who make the numbers don't lie and they're astronomical. Money, hand over fist money from munitions. Why do people hate communism so much? Well, that was the democracy that ruled the world. Remember, I always say there were 3,000 kingdoms in Bavaria alone during the thousand-year reign. And then when Satan was loosed, he had that prohibition. He could no longer deceive the nations. You're in the pit and you can't deceive the nations. That leaves a lot of things open. So communism took over the world. It took over whatever they called a republic. Remember, Rome and those, the Greek republics, they were called republics too. They didn't work out, but they liked the idea of having an aristocracy. So communism, Marx, Engel, Mao, Stalin, those people were real. They worked the people into a frenzy because that's what Satan wanted. And they changed the world. When you hear, and I'll show just a few of the revolutions, and and you hear, you read through it, 6 million Jews, 40 million Ukrainians, and the Holodomor, Irish, 3.2 million. What was that? Hungary, 1.6 million. Okay, okay. Hungary only had 10 million people. It was a purge. Communists are bloodthirsty purgers. That's why we all, you know, instilled the Keynesian philosophy. They dug back to Adam Smith. But if it wasn't for the gay Maynard Keynes and, oh, he has it all figured out, supply side, deficit spending, and that's where we are today. We are in still wartime. You're only being rationed by, well, now the gas is over $4 an hour where I live. That's a rationing because people can't spend it. And they find that works easier than supplying you tickets. Capitalism was and is, and it capitalism was and is new. It could have been a workable, viable alternative, but sin gets in the way. And the people in charge want more and more. And the full mouth never wants to stop eating. In that way, sin is causing guilt, real guilt, not imaginary guilt, as so to inspire imagination or maybe introspection, navel gazing, ponder your ways. What are you going to do with your life? You're in a war and it goes around, comes around. They live happy, they get married until their weddings are bombed. You know, a million get killed. Well, there's 6 million in Chicago. In the long run, most people's life goes on. But time is running short. We do live in very trying times economically. It is Christ, and He keeps me this far to warn and to share His teachings. And that involved the biogeology, the stones crying out, the flat earth nation, the golden age past. So welcome everybody to the new incarnation of Mud Flood was Armageddon. That's right, the Mud Flood was the Armageddon. Don't let them tell you anything else unless they are willing to debate you in a fair and honest way. Look, it's the thing. That I wonder if I have any pictures. Only a couple. Uh-oh. Did you see that? September 9th, 2025. 9/11 is the distraction. That's the date they announced that almost a million jobs that they said the Doge and Trump had done in his first year. They said, no, you didn't add a million jobs. September 10th, Charlie Kirk was killed, and the distractions and the wars have been nonstop ever since. You may not think it's anything, you will someday. Like everything else I tell you. Look at that. Some people, man, they had a detour. The truck drivers that aren't used to driving that route, they had a low thing, man. 5 trucks in one day. Wow, that'll slow you down. Hey, which one's new? This is the one from the 1400s, and this is the modern recreation with a 3D scanner. They can't do it. It wasn't the Middle Ages, it was the golden age of Christ. I'm hoping I'm sharing the screen. No complaints so far. So I'm going to jump right into this. Here's how they stole the water in Arizona, and they built it on Native American lands. Remember, like this building up here where my mouse is, they found it. They found it. They didn't do that. They didn't dig these ditches. They were already there. They uncovered them like they uncovered the Erie Canal. Maybe we'll have to show you some of the aqueducts. What'd you call me?
Transformation beyond
Can't even hear it.
rugged mining outpost had been made. That momentum was only amplified with the arrival of the railroads in the 1880s, as the otherwise isolated valley became a major regional trade center. Now linked to powerful national markets, businessmen from the north took interest and began establishing their corporate foothold accordingly. As the population expanded, so too did the waterworks. Some reservoirs were installed around the state to capture and
Look at that. These are in Colorado. These are still there. Zach, I think you worked at that one.
contend with seasonal
Oh,
flooding.
wait, that's
but
in
it was
Arizona.
problematic. The engineers struggled to comprehend the forces at hand. A state of affairs which resulted in tragedy.
Look at
In
that
February
flood.
of 1890, a period of heavy rain led to the 25-year flood, causing one of Arizona's early dams, the Walnut Grove Dam, to give way, releasing.
But how come now they're going to always have water? Come on, SoCash.
And for decades, this man-made river fulfilled the dream of bringing roughly 1.5 million acre-feet of water annually to residents. It allowed cities like Phoenix and Tucson to grow and provided a steady supply of water to nearly 1 million acres of farmland. Furthermore, the state began water banking, which is the practice of recharging underground reservoirs as a failsafe in times of drought. Yet, even with supply diversification in place, many Arizonans were working against their own progress.
Oh, I'm kidding. I kid you not. It's water. And now the AI taking it. It's a war, and it's going to be a dirty war. You're going to be going like, I don't need my nails fixed this week. I think I need a sandwich.
Also been called into effect. In both 2024 and 2025, systems finally crossed a threshold that triggered a Tier 1
Wow, wait, that just happened so this is 2026.
shortage. For Arizona, this meant a sudden loss of 512,000 acre-feet of its supply. The scale of that loss is difficult to overstate. It represents 30% of the normal supply carried by the aqueduct. It's roughly 18% of the state's total Colorado River supply and nearly 8% of all the water used annually across the state. However, this didn't mean that the people went without water. Rather, they began effectively
Isn't that funny? It just dawned on me. It's always so funny. Look at how, it's not like the
the
Colorado
aqueducts.
is the Mississippi. Look at the mighty Mississippi, a mile wide in some parts. This looks like the Rio Grande. It's a open garden hose, really. The Lord provides it. Millions of people count on it. Does it look like it's like, boy, that could never dry up. The Lord will never stop that. I'm not saying he's going to. I'm counting on, well, I'm here in Colorado because this is where the Colorado and the Rio Grande start here. So they can't plug it all up. There's always loose water, springs and things like that.
It's roughly 18% of the state's total Colorado River supply and nearly 8% of all the water used annually across the state. However, this didn't mean that the people went without water. Rather, they began effectively
Brian, people can't go without water. Wrap it up.
would still have their emergency supply, and that buys them time. Ultimately, a deal could be made.
Anyway, that's what I wanted to hear. Say, buy some time. Got to buy some time. Huh.
It was a settling basin for the water before it began the long journey to Carthage. Like most
What?
Roman aqueducts, the Zagwan aqueduct was subterranean for most of its length. Here, just below the Nymphaeum, a short segment has been excavated. The channel was relatively small, about 90 centimeters wide by 130 centimeters high, just large enough for maintenance workers to crawl through and clean out the
Yuck. That's like me. Every year I had to go up with a garden hose and sprayer because I had 5 big elm trees in my yard, and it was a leaf mess. Nothing you could do. Don't tell me about no leaf guards. I had 5 elm trees, and when you spray that, no matter how careful you get, some of it still splashes back on you. It's that stagnant, gross.
sediment traps in the channel floor. After falling steeply for the first few kilometers,
Look
the
at
aqueduct
that.
channel leveled out with a
See,
subsequent
because when it's going underground, that means it's this level. It's that same level underground, and then when it, pops up out of the ground, they just keep it the same level.
average gradient of only 0.15%.
Wow, 0.15%. You might think that's barely enough to keep the water flowing, 0.145%. Well, they found that if you have it entering the city any faster, it piles up too fast. So you kind of have to just let it dribble in there. 1.5%, 0.15%. Give us to it one more time with the
kilometers. The aqueduct channel leveled out with a subsequent average gradient of only 0.15%. In several places, long lines of arcades were constructed to maintain the gradient over valleys. Here, in Mohammedia, the arcades parallel the modern highway. As you can see, the piers of the arcade were constructed
that means that's where the old highway was.
from large stone blocks, topped by a masonry channel. Water took about a day and a half to flow from one end of the aqueduct to the other. On the outskirts of Carthage, the aqueduct flowed into the massive La Mauga cisterns. There were originally 24 chambers. To judge from the surviving examples, each was a vault 95 meters long and 12.5 meters wide. Much of the water stored here was eventually channeled to the Antonine Baths, the aqueduct's final destination. Carthage seems to have had a water
I'm into sweat lodges and sweating and, hot springs. But they said that's why they built it to that area, so that they could have water to heat up, and they were really into those baths and amphitheaters.
supply adequate for the needs of its residents before the aqueduct was built. It was probably the construction of the Antonine Baths, the largest anywhere outside Rome, that made the Zagwan Aqueduct necessary. The superstructure of the Antonine Baths is long gone, destroyed by medieval earthquakes and stone robbers, but the basement remains intact enough to provide a sense of the vast halls in which the water of the Zagwan springs finally returned to the sun. If you're interested in visiting the Roman ruins of Tunisia and other historic destinations with me, check out the Told Stone Trips page, linked on screen.
So that's giving him some fair time to, that's some interesting stuff. Now, some people might ask, I hope you're one of those kind of people that would ask, and you've heard it asked, who made the aqueducts? Where did they come from? The Bible tells us. So we're going to look up, aqueducts, the upper pools, pools. That's what this word means. Pond, pools, pools. 2 Samuel. So that's not the one that won't suffice for all of the pools, but this word, because we're going to look at a few verses, designates an artificial or natural pond, because they did have upper and lower pools in the real Jerusalem. They don't have them in the fake Jerusalem over there today. Hezekiah's, we'll look at that famous engineering project. He made pools and the tunnel to bring water into the city. You know what? And there were a lot of pretty good kings before Hezekiah. And that really means it only lasted less than 1,000 years of all history. But it was leading up until the time of our Lord. Here, let's just stick to the Bible. This one is the book of Isaiah, chapter 36, verse 2. We'll look at it in the New Living and then the English Standard. Then the king of Assyria sent his chief of staff from Lachish with a huge army to confront the aforementioned King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. The Assyrians took up a position beside the aqueduct that feeds the water into the upper pool near the road leading to the field where the cloth is washed. And like so many things, we have no idea what's the washer's field. I mean, I would imagine in a city of 1 million people, it's a pretty big deal. That's where they do the industrial laundry. Anyway, they just say it was with a great army, the conduit. It's I guess, translator's choice. Looking here, not for Hezekiah. There's the pool. You saw that. Now here's the conduit, the aqueduct. The large trench. Well, how about that? When he was going to chop off the heads of the Baal prophets, because, that'll teach you. They made a bet with him. Whoever can bring down fire, the other guy kills him. Well, Elijah had to teach a pretty hard lesson and how much strength does God have to give a man? I mean, could you imagine doing 400 push-ups? No. Trench, conduit, water course, King James, good job. It's a canal. They spoke to King James back then. Well, it was the King James. The little rivers, only 11 times in solid as a rock, root word. Let's look at another verse from Isaiah, backing up to chapter 7, verse 3. Hey, you, Lord God Almighty said to Isaiah, "Go out to meet Ahaz, you and Shear-Jashub, your son, at the end of the conduit." And the other upper, it's that same thing. So it's always going to be there. That's one of those rare uses. Look at this one here in the Berean. That's here's Hezekiah. He constructed a pool and a tunnel. Oh, you mean he dug out a tunnel from the Titan's nerves and blood vessels? Tunnel. Is that trench? Huh. Because aqueducts go up and down and through the ground and then keep it level at 0.15, 145. Why don't they just say 1.5? Wouldn't that round up? You just knock off a whole letter. You'd save me a syllable. That's not where I was at. Conduits. Here's another verse from 2 Kings 18:17. I feel better now because I had to get a USB microphone for anybody that's been wondering how come this one works. I think it is that port, which means that one microphone might be good. Here we go, another one, upper pool, same thing. Jerusalem had plenty of water, not like that mediocre, shameful display they have over there in what they call Jerusalem today. That is no way the glorious tunnels that Hezekiah describes and that David walked through to save the day. That's what he did. Where's this? Joab and Abishai pursued Abner. By sunset, they had gone as far as the hill of Ammah, opposite of Giah, on the way to the wilderness. Huh. No, I wonder what I was doing looking at Ahab. Not that this story didn't, harbor revenge for 20 years, but I would have thought there'd something to do with water here. Let's see what it says about the sun. Not the sun that was created, or not a type of the phraseology of like in Genesis 1, the sun had risen. Not, there was a light. There's two lights in the sky. You know that, right? You look at them. You see them all the time. Well, the moon and the sun. You see the sun. You know that. But are you curious why? It's the light. I don't think they call it the sun. Let there be light, but that's not it. That's not really, this is like the separating the light, separating the water. So it's down like on the fourth day here, and let there be lights in the expanse. Hey, you give light on the earth, man. And what's the star plasma or whatever's going on up there, right? It's not like the moon when they show you the pictures with those Nikon P1000s, P900s. They're just flashing disco bulbs. God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. They don't call it the sun. It's probably not a big deal. I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. I'm going to move on. So I've got this other one here. The only one use of reservoir in the whole Bible. It was a ditch, and in Isaiah 22:11, a one and only use of that reservoir. Remember this verse? You made a reservoir between the two walls. That sounds like a holding thing, like that other city had of the old pool. But you did not look to him who did it or see him who planned it long ago. Oh no. There were some good kings and some bad kings. This was against Jerusalem, an oral against him, a day of tumult, trampling, and confusion. God is always going to judge. What about our country right now with our nationalism and everything else? There's that isn't every sign of a judgment is upon us. We need to be stewards, strong men, uh, because it's about to get very, very crazy. Here's our final verse until we get to the end of the Bible study. Hope, 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 hope. Yeah, linen. You got to wear linen to get in heaven. I guess you have to have hope to get in. Wait a minute. That other verse about the reservoir only had one. Here's a Genesis 1:10. No, that's not the fourth day. Or is it? They're reservoirs. Oh, but you don't need any help studying the Bible. You got it all figured out. Hey, did you see that new I hate to, here I don't I'm gonna duplicate this. I want to just see if it comes up and I find it without any trouble. But Tala, I've called him out since, I've had him on as a co-host. I thought I was doing him a favor. And then he told me, thanks, Paco, I'll take it from here. And then went around teaching what he thought was, a better way to teach it. Oh, it's okay. I went too far. Way too far. And I was like, oh my goodness. That's Tala. He's trying to do a live show. He's obviously in the hospital. He's trying to talk. Maybe he thinks he's talking. I see his lips moving. God is, oh, was that the last verse? Let's see. So here's that verse, Nehemiah 2. Now, this is even when you're going to be rebuilding and who built the aqueducts, who did this? It's all Bible. Everything's about the Bible. Then I went on to the gate of the fountain and to the king's pool, but there was no place for the beast. That's Nehemiah. He snuck into the city to see what was going on. You want to check it out? Ezra and Nehemiah, they really did well. He was the cupbearer to the king. So he brought his people there. This is one of the bad guys, Tobiah, Sanballat, and Tobiah. He got there. Then he arose by night, had a few men with him, and I told no one what my God had put into my heart to do in Jerusalem. There was no animal with me but the one on which I rode. I went out by night by the valley gate to the dragon spring, to the dung gate, and I inspected the walls of Jerusalem that were broken down, and its gates that had been destroyed by fire. Then when I went on to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but there was no room for the animal that was underneath me to pass, then I went up in the night by the valley and inspected the wall and turned back and entered by the valley gate and so returned. And the officials did not know where I had gone or what I was doing, and I had not yet told the Jews, the priests, the nobles, and the officials, and the rest who were to do the work. They had a secret plan too. The kings of Babylonia and Persian were saying it's time for the Gentiles to occupy Jerusalem. You Jews are going to be, we're convinced. The Persian king's wife Esther said, go do it. And his grandson did it. Nebuchadnezzar's relatives were on board. The Jews struggled, to say the least, but God had a plan. It was going to be it. The line of David would deliver us, God in the flesh. The people did repent of their sins for a time. They remembered the name of Abraham and the covenant he made where, Messiah was promised. Obligations of the covenant. And when they went in, I wonder if I could find it real quick because I don't want to dwell here. I want to go ahead and wrap this up. These are the people that returned. I'm looking for that when they finally brought in the temple and it was completed. It was such a party. If it's not in 8 or 9, but it talks about how Ezra and Nehemiah started at both ends of the city and marched and and they met at the temple. The people confessed their sins, and it had women singers, men singers, trained musicians, and God blessed it. And then that's, when the God blesses it and the fire comes down. So I didn't find that. This is my YouTube algorithm. Huge risk of weather. Been snowing live. It's calmed down now. Here we go. I had this pulled up. That's Tala. Now, the idea came to me about doing a video life during wartime, getting people to realize first they planned the cover up of the Golden Age, Middle Ages by adding 1,000 years and extending history with lies of the Jesuits, Rosicrucians, and John Birch Society. But it also made me think about we're the same age. In 1978, I thought I was the coolest kid in town because I got turned on to the Talking Heads and introduced it to my friends and started playing it on the jukeboxes in the towns around the small towns where I lived. And I kind of looked like this guy. I have always been a skinny whip. But this is life during wartime. You've heard it. And it's always a stage production. See how much you have to practice to get that running in time while you're playing the guitar? You heard of a van that's loaded up with weapons. It's packed up. It's ready to go. We heard about a van loaded up with weapons that's packed up and ready to go. That's not kind of like where's the fun upbeat part? You heard about the grave sites down by the highway. Well, it's a pretty upbeat song, though. Place where nobody knows. The sound of gunfire off in the distance. I'm getting used to it now. he hears the gunfire out in the distance. He's used to it now. All these girls know is if they keep time and count to 4, like David taught them, they'll get paid. He heard the gunshots. He's getting used to it. It ain't no party.
Let's get the message to the receiver. Hope of an answer someday. I got 3 passports, couple of visas, don't even know my real name.
He's got 3 passports, a couple of visas. He don't even know his real name. Back in '78, we thought we would be young forever. No, I think he's probably about 10 years older than me. Oh, here's he did when he got live at Coachella. It's one of those, stick it to the man. We're going to sing protest songs for $240 a ticket.
Turn up some grave sites out by the highway. Place where nobody knows. Sound of gunfire off in the distance. Getting used to it now. Lived in a brownstone, I lived in a ghetto. I lived all over this town. Sing a party.
So there's not a lot of that same fluid motions. You're living in life during wartime. You have to know somewhere, somehow, somebody has weapons. They bought on the black market. They're loading up. They're ready to go. Other people are looking for them because they're killing people, burying them. They started these with false fire. That's why he hears the gunfire off in the distance. You got to be willing when you're dedicated to either communism or capitalism, nationalism, or white supremacy, or one of those other bad ones from the other countries. I'm from a white country. You have to be ready. You're going to live in the jungle. You live everywhere because it's not a party. It's not a disco. They'll kill you dead. This is not the time for dancing or lovey-dovey. Now, verse 2. Transmit the message to the receiver. Hope for an answer someday. He's got 3 passports, a couple of visas, doesn't even know his real name. High on a hillside, the trucks are loading, everything's ready to roll, and he's just like, I sleep in the daytime, I work at nighttime, I might not ever get home. You're going to kill the people, though. You got to save the world. Again, there ain't no party, there ain't no disco. Just letting the people remind, this ain't no Mud Club or CBGBs. Those were the punk rock clubs that allowed a younger than 21-year-old, because he was in the band and wrote the songs, to play those music venues. It's a setup. All the big stars are still the big stars touring or recently quit, because this has all been one reset. Everything's been brand new for you generation, and especially you if you've been called, chosen, and being faithful to the Lord. It's about, are you going to walk that narrow road, or do you think you got to go kill people somehow, buy another gun, and if they come to take your food, you'll teach them a lesson they'll never forget? Let's say you're successful at that 150 times when the waves of zombies, piles of dead people outside, and you're still every night cranking up the generator, listening to the old Ted Nugent, Molly Hatchet, and Metallica albums. You heard about Houston, heard about Detroit, heard about Pittsburgh, PA? Those were just massive riots in the day. You ought to know not to stand by the window. Somebody see you up there. Get some groceries, some peanut butters, last a couple of days, because that's really, when it gets busy, that's all you care about. Can I live another day? Can I make it? Can I find a safe place to take a dump and go to sleep? got no speakers, no headphones, no records to play. You're going to have a lot of time to ponder then, won't you? Why stay in college? Starts the chorus. Why go to night school? Going to be different this time? Yeah, it's a lot different. The normal schools decided to start teaching LBGTQ, and now they pulled the rug out from underneath that, like going like, "Oh, we just thought there was scientific proof, but now there's not. Sorry, you're not really a boy." That's heartbreaking for them. Hey, who's guilty? The one who got millstoned or the person who millstoned them? Well, they both ended up not trusting in Jesus. Trouble in transit. They made it through the roadblock. They got to computers and now they're blending in with the crowd, tapping phone lines. They don't care if it's not allowed. Dressing like students, dressing like housewives, going to church, healing people in the spirit, casting out demons, anything to fit in. You make me shiver. I feel so tender. We make a pretty good team because they killed him or something. Notebooks, burn the notebooks. His chest is aching, but maybe he's getting a adrenaline rush.
Well, there was pretty harsh repression going on, as there were in all of the newly communist Soviet-dominated states in the late 1940s, early 1950s. And we've borrowed a chunk here from Victor Sebastian's book, Budapest Between East and West, describing this. The terror lasted more than 3 years. The numbers in a small country of fewer than 10 million.
They're only admitting to this. This is a groundbreaking revelation in 2023. The communists were more evil than the hundreds of millions they starved to death because, well, they couldn't maintain a good posture in Moscow and make everybody look happy in one huge metropolitan million city Potemkin village. If you know what a Potemkin village is, if you don't, you're welcome to a not rabbit trail failure.
People was staggering. Between 1950 and 1953, more than 1.3 million people were prosecuted. That's 13% of the population, and half of them jailed. Around 50,000 more were arrested but never faced a charge or appeared in court. More than 2,400 were summarily executed, but many times that number rotted to death in police cells or in the 3 concentration camps that formed the Magyar Gulag, where 40,000 people were interned. And of 850,000 members of the Communist Party in 1950, almost half were either dead, in prison, or in labor camps 3 years later. And often the roles change between victim and executioner with dramatic speed.
So what is going
So in the 1930s, they had an argument, man. Are we going to have fascism or democracy, which is soft communism, like the type in British? They all said they were against it, but they had and lead towards communism, and Soviet Union went completely nuts, taking over everything, and then the other countries killed their own people too.
A picture of a whole lot of people in the street in Pest. And now we come back to this fellow Imre Nagy again. He returned as prime minister. He'd been prime minister from 53 to 55 before being ousted by Rákosi's faction. But right in the first couple of days of the revolt, he is brought back by the Communist Party because they think, well, he can at least placate the crowds. By the way, communist regimes were terrible at this. Whenever they faced any kind of trouble, they would pull all kinds of levers and do all kinds of things just to dampen everything down before going back to the way they were before.
It's Satan that did everything. It's not the communists. All of these people were Freemasonic people taking orders. You know why you live in exile in Portugal? Because they planned it. They did it. They're Spain. They're the French. They're Rome. The Virgin Mary, the Trinity, or we'll skin you alive and burn you. They're the weeds that took over the wheat in the 1,000-year reign of Christ, and the staggering remnant after the reaping of the grapes of wrath made it into the short season. It's where you are now learning these things about an Admiral Nicholas Horthy, and we're dealing with some of the communist troubles in Hungary.
But you can see here he's 88, actually.
When he passed?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, spring chicken compared to you.
Oh, shh.
So what is his autobiography like? Is it worth reading?
It is worth reading. Like so many autobiographies, he's attempting to give self-vindication.
Justification for himself?
Well, to vindicate his actions, and that took some doing. This is a guy who had, after all, played ball, however queasily, with Hitler.
First Hitler and then the Arrow Cross.
No, he never played ball with them. He tried banning them, and they were sort of went along with ousting him from power. So he could at least claim that. But he had been an anti.
This went on in a lot of countries. A little bit more how the Pope was involved.
But not before completing his memoirs of what was truly a tumultuous life.
Which is how you know he felt betrayed by the Pope?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who knew him could have deduced that for themselves. He was not someone for bending, and he had sacrificed so much for what he believed.
Now we're on the decline?
Yes, we're going to look very briefly at these last 30 years and how this all ends. So let's say a little bit about Kadarism. Janos Kadar, the guy Moscow has put in charge. What does he do? He knows that everybody in the country he's got to rule hates him. He's utterly detested. And
how do they get in power, you know?
With public honors on the 16th of June, 1989. There are various speakers at the funeral, one of whom was a young Viktor Orban, who demanded democratic elections and the withdrawal of all Soviet troops.
To vindicate his grandfather, the son stepped into the role. In 1989 might sound like a long time to you, but I was pushing 30 years old.
My father refused to go to the pictures. He couldn't abide the pictures, mainly because people smoked, and the smoke level.
Theatre programmes typically now contained a warning.
When you went to the movies, you had to be prepared, of course, for the sirens to go. Then it would come up on the screen.
Life during wartime. The people of Britain took to the streets in protest, and the ban was lifted within 2 weeks. They said, no, when the Nazis might attack us at any moment. The numbers of people dying were the percentages were very low that they got hit. They just said, we would rather not give up our, have a drink and then go out to the movie 3 or 4 times a week, even if it's a war. We'll take our chances.
Air raid sirens have gone. You can indeed leave if you wish to do so. Please be quiet, otherwise you sit here and wait.
Blitz cities often had intelligence officers stationed in these cities who record what was happening immediately after the Blitz. They came to the conclusion that if a city's utilities, civic organisation, and importantly leisure facilities had remained intact, then morale would often improve and be maintained.
And when you see the wars today, 4 years, Iran has been, Putin has been attacking the Ukraine. And you'd think it was bombed to smithereens, but, they put out their propagandas. Look at us. We're so happy in Ukraine. They can't touch us. They're scared. They're running out of ammo. And it looks nice. And then you realize, well, it was only one block. It is square miles of city. And you make propaganda. You get the people that never see the war. And a lot of it was a rebuild.
George Formby,
So
an entertainer.
They put up, here's what they put out while they're going to war. Remember, Hitler was friends with a lot of people. Time Man of the Year, twice.
Whose blueness got him banned from the BBC at one point, made several such films during the war, including Let George Do It, which was released in America as To Hell with Hitler.
George Formby played his classic figure, the little man against the world. In this case, it was a little man against Hitler. In this film, George Formby is mistaken for an intelligence officer. He gets all sorts of confusion while he's in Norway on a travelling band he's with. He has a dream and he has a fight with Hitler, and it's a great comic effect.
Schweinehund, was it? I knock your head off on the block! Not if I knock your block off first.
And the people at home went wild. They loved it. In the meantime,
that, of course, yes, they continued to do so literally the very next day, which is, of course, a direct violation of the ceasefire, almost like we all knew that this was going to happen over and over and over and over again. Now, this just in, as in 40 minutes ago, says President Trump says he is not happy with our greatest allies' initial attacks in Beirut today, which were not coordinated with the United States. Wow, no way, huh? It's almost like they do whatever the fuck they want. And they do it with our tax dollars, by the way.
Wow.
Then Trump said, a deal would have been signed on tomorrow.
Why are they lying? Now, we're going to just wrap it up. But first, a guy talking about the Nephilim, trying to tie it into the Nimrod, Hillary Rodham Clinton. But we're going to check his Bible,
Rodham Clinton gave a speech in the building behind me for the math and science school she helped create as Arkansas First Lady. In that speech, she describes a certain route she takes to get to this city of Hot Springs, Arkansas, a route that her husband, the former President Bill Clinton, first showed her in the early 70s. Now, most likely she took the fastest and most common route here. But it's possible she could have taken the historic route here, or perhaps a young man in the early 70s looking to impress a young woman who was into the occult, UFOs, and Babylonian mythology may elect to take the scenic route. Literally. Scenic Route 7. And what makes it noteworthy and so scenic is this area here. Nimrod, named after the grandson of Noah from the Bible. And I don't know if Bill Clinton told this story on his...
Now, don't let that get away from your mind. Am I sharing the screen? This is why I do it. It's Bible time. He's sharing the screen. It's Nimrod.
Literally. Scenic Route 7. And what makes it noteworthy and so scenic is this area here. Nimrod, named after the grandson of Noah from the Bible.
Noah. He's the grandson of Noah. He is the grandson of Noah, documented. How could he be a fallen angel? How can he call him a giant and say that he was a giant that had supernatural? He just said he's the grandson of Noah.
I don't know if Bill Clinton told this story on his drive. Maybe I'm the only one who tells this story. But Nimrod has been associated with various historical and mythological theories. For example, he was said to be a giant that possessed DNA from a human hybrid
Where? The Bible does not call him a giant.
species known as the Nephilim. And in the Book of Enoch, an ancient text brought up in the
Oh,
recently released UFO files, it said that the Nephilim were descended from fallen angels.
now the wide road is all about this is what the wide road has been preparing since Eric von Daniken in the 1970. All of those things were planned to cover up the found world. Mud flood was Armageddon.
But since this book isn't in the Bible, theories began to develop that these weren't actually.
No, theories began to develop when they fake found a book of Enoch in 1948, and then some rare tribe that they planted in Ethiopia that said, "You're black Jews," and they planted them there for 150 years. And so now there's the two people, and everybody else is going, "Oh, they kept Enoch from us," because it's heresy. Nobody can look at it and take it serious. I hope that, and if you do, God will either wake you up or he won't. But here's Cush fathered Nimrod. He was the first on the earth to be a mighty man. Now, what does the Illuminati want? Because all of the other Gibborim in the Bible were godly men. As far as I can tell, the Gibborim, the mighty ones, the Gebers, and it's used 42 times. And he was the first one, very ungodly. He didn't need Moses. He didn't need Noah. They listened to him. He was the first human to be a mighty man, like he was a mighty hunter. But who's this valiant warrior? He's a Gibborim too. He's a mighty man of valor. Judges 6:12. That's when the movie Disclosure's coming out. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "The Lord be with you, O mighty man of God." And the mighty man of God, Gideon, said to him, "Please, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, why then has all this happened to you?" I mean, to us, to them. So that's the second Gibborim. Here's another one. Ruth's husband, Boaz. You know who he's related to? His name is Boaz. He is a mighty man. And Boaz begat Jesse. Jesse begat Obed. And Obed begat David. And Boaz, he's number 2 on the list of these human Gibberines. Here's another strong man. You see what the Illuminati and things, what they want giants, and they want you to think we need, the Gibberees, but they secretly want them. It's because they're not Nimrod was a not godly one. Find me another one. Find me another one where it wasn't, he was just a mighty leader of the people, a human mighty leader of the people who rose up and had that charisma. Benaniah, he was mighty. King David's mighty men. All these guys were mighty men. There's some mighty men listed in First Chronicles 27. There's a boatload missing here. How many of them? Who's the head of those over 30? Well, I was just on it. I have to go back. 28:1, the mighty men. First Chronicles. David assembled in Jerusalem all the officials of Israel, the officials of the tribes, the officers of the division that served the king, the commanders of thousands, commanders of 100, stewards of all the property, livestock, all of his sons, together with the palace officials, the mighty men. Now, does anybody want to tell me that, hey, where are the human angel hybrids that descended from Noah? No. If you want to play fantasy, then you're going to end up listening to women charismatic pastors that are going to teach you how to be a real man and your woman how to make sure you stay on the right path. That's not theology. That's not looking at the Bible. If you're looking for a narrow road, the answers are in Scripture alone. That's the truth on a flat earth nation with its golden age past, because the mud flood was Armageddon. I know you got an orphan trained brain, so did I. We had the Hegelian dialectic, time to snap out of it. There's been a recent change. Satan is loosed. It's time to give your life to Jesus and realize everything that we thought was good was a lie and it's going away. Only the love in our heart is what's true. I hope you've been on your knees, believing in your heart that Jesus Christ rose from the dead, and you'll change too. But you know you've been forgiven. You've read the Bible and that by his stripes you were healed. It resonates in you know. You kept digging and it's right there. You're adopted. You're called. You're chosen. You're elected. Because it seemed like your own decision to say, I believe in my heart, so I'll confess with my mouth that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. It's a flat earth nation. Amen. Hallelujah. Aho. Aloha. Arrivederci. Ciao. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Nakame. Adios, amigos, from the border of southern Colorado and New Mexico. That's how I like to say goodbye.